Hi, this is Dave, Fell Running Guide. In this video, what we're going to do is look at planning a route. How would we get from A to B? So on this map, we want to go from the dam wall here over to this little ring contour here, Barrister's Tor. So what we'll do is plan the route on the map, and then in a second video, I'm going to go out and actually do the route itself. Take some photos and some video and show you what it actually looks like in real life, whether it is hard or difficult to navigate. Now, I set this task as a navigation task a few weeks ago on social media, and people came up with two possible route options. So let's have a look at those. The first one would be to simply go up the side of the reservoir for a couple of kilometres on this bridleway, and then get to this point here, turn right heading eastwards along the south side of this Abbey Brook, along this path here, until we get to Sheepfold Clough and our destination. Very straightforward. And another option would be to go more directly, so up here and up this clough, and then work our way across the top here, not on public footpaths, but nevertheless on paths for a lot of the way, and then round this high ground here and drop down there. Now that's about 1.5 kilometres shorter. So those are the two routes shown there. Now the majority of people said that they would choose the blue route, even though it was a longer way round, because they didn't feel confident of navigating the more direct route. But I don't think it's particularly difficult to navigate on that pink-purple line. And I think sometimes people are a bit reluctant to do it, and they want to stick to public footpaths all the time, when actually it might be more optional or a bit more efficient to go and do a bit of navigating and take an easier line. So let's have a look at that purple route in a little bit more detail and see how we would do it. So first of all, if we were navigating any route, rather than just look at it as a whole, we're going to break it down into little legs, do it in little segments, bit by bit, that make it easier. And if we're doing that, there are a few little tips that we can use that are going to help us. So I always think of the letter D and 4 Ds that are going to help me navigate. So the first one is D for direction. What direction do I want to be going in? And then when I'm actually out in the landscape, I can check, am I going in that direction? So if I've planned a route and I should be going westwards, and I find that I'm not going westwards, then that's time to stop. Something's gone wrong. So the first D is direction. The second D would be distance. How far should I be going on this particular leg of my journey? Okay, so if you've planned it and you think, oh, it's going to be 1 kilometre, then you might be able to judge that. You might be able to look and see, oh yeah, I can see that's 1 kilometre away, or maybe look at something and say, well, I'm not going to that particular point because that's too far or too close. So D for distance. The third D we'd look at is details, and this is where we look really closely at the map and we look at the features. So should this particular leg of my journey be going uphill or downhill, or a combination of both? Look really closely at the contours. So again, if you expect your journey to be going uphill and you find that you're going downhill, that's alarm bells should start ringing, and it'll help you going on in the wrong direction or going the wrong way. Other details we can look at are the major details on the map, major land features. So do you cross a river, for example? Is there a footbridge you cross? Do we go over some high ground, over summits? Do we enter and leave forests? Do we cross any field boundaries, walls or fences? Things like that. So again, if we've got a good idea of what we expect to see in the landscape, and then when we actually do go out there, if we do see those features, they're good things to tick off as we go along. We can use man-made features, but I'd always be looking at the more permanent features that we expect to be there all the time. And then a fourth D that we can use is D for duration. How long will that particular leg of our journey take? Now that's a bit more tricky because it depends on whether we're walking, whether we're running, whether we're racing. Depends on our levels of fitness, depends on whether we're carrying a big rucksack or not, depends on conditions underfoot. So a bit harder to plan duration, but at least if you get a rough idea for yourself how quickly you cover the ground, whether you're running or walking, that might help. Again, if you plan to get to a point and you think it's going to take you 10 minutes and you've been going for 12 minutes, then that might be a time to stop and think and go, wait a minute, we should be there by now. So let's have a look at the map and see, could we possibly have gone wrong? Okay, so let's have a look at our journey then and break it down into little legs and see what we would do. So I've zoomed right in on the map here to help us. And the first thing we're going to do is say, I'm just going to go to this point here, just where Hollinclough comes down, drains from the northeast down into the main reservoir. So direction along there is pretty much north, just slightly to the left, to the west of north, but pretty much north, and it's only a couple of 100 meters. The details, well, we're going along the reservoir. We've got the reservoir on our left and we've got woods going uphill on our right. How long would that take? Well, again, depends on whether we're walking or running. You could use Naismith's rule, thinking you're going to cover a kilometre in about 12 minutes and add a minute for every 10 metres uphill. But on that, probably not expecting more than a couple of minutes. So that would be our first point. The second point, we're going to say we're going to go up the track, maybe to this point here where this track meets this wall or fence. We don't know whether it's a wall or fence, but also look at the contours, and the contours go from being close together to suddenly opening up. So that's called the break of slope. So direction, pretty much northeasterly. There's different bit more close to north there, closer to east on the first bit, but all the while we're going northeasterly. Probably 600 meters in total from there to there, and that again depends on your fitness. Might say 10 minutes for that. What are we going to see? Well, we're always going up steep ground with the stream on our left, and it looks like we've got woods on our left there and open ground on the right. Break of slope, that means change of angle. So all the way up there it's been quite steep, and then we get to this point and we might think, oh crikey, thank goodness for that, the ground is now flattening out, so much less steep. Now at this point here, if we want to follow paths or tracks, we'd have to go southwards and then back northeastwards again and north westwards for that bit. But a straight line, or the closest direction would be, or closest distance would be to straight line along that wall or boundary. I keep saying wall, I don't know whether it's a wall or a fence line. We're in access land. We know that because we've crossed this point here, look. Maybe should have mentioned that. That's the access land boundary. So we don't have to stick to paths there. In fact, we're not even on a public right-of-way there. What we don't know, though, is whether this is a high dry stone wall or a barbed wire fence. We might not be able to get over there. But if we could, if this was tumbled down or if there was a gate or a stile, we could just go straight across to there. So we won't know that until we get there. But we're aiming to get to this point here where we've got a wall corner and we've got a path junction. So let's assume we could go straight across, and that's probably less than 200 meters from that point there to that point there. Again, it's a northeasterly direction. We're handrailing in this case, walking alongside that wall or fence line. How long is it going to take? Well, we don't know what the vegetation's like, whether there's a path along there or maybe a sheep path or something like that. Or it might be really deep heather, we don't know. But we give it a couple of minutes for a couple of 100 meters. Obviously you could change that estimate when you got there and found what the terrain was like. Okay, from that point there, let's move the map and have a look more along to where we're going. So from here, what we want to do is follow this double dashed track. So we're going to follow it all the way along to here until we get to maybe this 450 meter contour here, where the ground starts to rise more steeply. So let's think about that. What direction? Well, pretty close to north to start with, up to here, and then more northeasterly, closer to east northeast here, and then more northeasterly, and then the final bit we head probably easterly for just 100 meters or so. What distance is it? Well, from there all the way up to here, it's probably about 1.5 kilometers there. Details, well, we could tick off these field boundaries as we go along. That might be a wall or a fence. We've got these grouse butts here. We've got another boundary here. We've got some path junctions here. We've got boundary there. We've got a path junction there that we don't want to take. That goes to the south of this high ground. But the one big key feature up here, the big thing we're looking at, let me just move that slightly, is this high ground here. We've got Lost Lad and this steep ground going up to it. The first part of our journey is gradually uphill, and then at this point here it flattens off ever so slightly uphill here, and then we get to here and then it's suddenly uphill. So even in bad visibility, we'd probably be able to note, well, we'd definitely be able to note when we're going steeply uphill, but this high ground here of Lost Lad, we might see that from a good long distance away and know that we have that over to the east. How long is that going to take? Again, depends on the terrain underfoot, but for 1.5 kilometers we might be thinking 15 to 20 minutes for that. Okay, next part of our journey, just move the map again. So what we're wanting to do is drop down here on this track down to Sheepfold Clough. Now here, people in the comments the other week said that they'd go up to Lost Lad and then down the other side. But what if we could skirt around underneath this and cut the high ground off and just go directly across to this point here where the track goes down through this wall or fence line. So a junction there, another wall or fence junction. We might not have to go up and down the other side, we might be able to cut underneath. Again, we don't know until we get there, but we could try that. Direction would be again northeasterly. Probably, I would say the distance from here over to here, we're looking at maybe about 0.5 kilometre, half a grid square, so 500 or 600 meters. What about the details? Well, depends on how far up here we have to go before we traverse under, but we've always got this big high ground going to be to our right and behind us as we come along. But if we just look at the natural features and just move the map a little bit more now, we've got this almost like a finger of ground sticking out to the north. Imagine this is a finger pointing northwards, gradually dropping to the north. To the left of it, to the west or northwest, we've got the ground draining flat across this bog and then more steeply into Cogman Clough, and then on this side here similarly down into Sheepfold Clough, and then we've got our little feature down in the bottom. So the final bit of our journey is downhill, 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 steeply to start with, or sorry, less steeply to start with, and then more steeply. Find this junction here, and then our destination is just beyond it. How long is that going to take? Well, distance of 700 meters downhill, we might think about 10 minutes for that. So that's our journey in total. I'm going to now go out and look at it in the landscape and see what it looks like for real. So have a look for that video.